humanity only learns from big mistakes. Not mistakes, but big mistakes. This is what I have against management in general and compliance, is that it is not about what to do, but it's about what not to do. If you look at the evolution of humanity and the industry that we created, starts with slavery, basically. Basically, the concept of management is at the root of what you can call capitalism, right?
I would say a manager could be a leader, not necessarily, but it will lead. Manager leading would lead to a better result. Well, in the positive way, you can say you're motivating them, right?
Okay,
you're playing on the other side.
Okay, but open your job description. Look at the job description. It doesn't say go and have fun. But why do we have wars? We have wars because everyone thinks they are right.
So is the manager part of the problem or part of the solution at the end?
Well, chicken and egg story.
Is the self-organizing team the better way to squeeze the lemon?
In a way, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have in the blue corner Levent Korkmaz, our white guy who is going to represent the dark side of the management.
And in the orange corner, we have Petya Dorovska. And you are with Management Nightmares podcast. So if you are watching this for the first time, there are a lot of first times here in this episode. First, it's in English. So it's our very first episode that we're going to talk in English. And second, it's the first episode that we're going to have not one, but two amazing guests.
Yeah. So what are we going to talk about today? It's going to be about the pros and cons, the nightmares and successes of the management. So we have Petya. She's representing the younger, motivated, proactive super manager, and Levent, who is coming from experience. We're going to see what kind of experience. But let's give you the floor. Let's start with the lady. Tell us a bit about you and why management. I saw your LinkedIn profile. You have all kinds of certifications. You're super motivated. You look like someone that is burning in the management area.
Thank you, guys. Glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me. So, well, I started with Lean, actually. When you mentioned about certifications, this was my first passion. I discovered it when I was in the university. So then I was going around in this direction. So I started with operations, then I went through process and ended up in project, let's say, management. Why management? Because it brings me enough satisfaction professionally. I can contribute and I am learning new things every day, which is actually another passion of mine. I want to be on top of things and to have the newest knowledge possible. I've been in different companies, but let's go to the other side.
Well, thank you. Well, it's all good that you have all those certificates and this desire to learn, but actually the real learning is only by mistakes, as you know. So have you made any big mistakes recently?
Well,
we're starting directly with
you said I had to punch, right?
The first punch. Be careful. She said she started with Lean, and I trust she has a black belt in Lean Six Sigma.
True that.
Yeah. So be careful there.
So what about the question that Levent asked? Are there any specific, let's say, nightmares or mistakes or learnings that you think made you Petya as of today?
Trying new things, of course. Mm-hmm. Jumping from one type of company to another. From the biggest corporation, then to a small company, that's a startup. But then you learn from your mistakes, right? Mm-hmm. So I would not say it's a mistake. I would say it was an option that I had. Mm-hmm.
I wasn't talking about a particular mistake.
No.
It's in general.
In general.
Don't we learn better? It's Hayek who says humanity only learns from big mistakes. Not mistakes, but big mistakes. Basically, this is the dark side of management, because it is driven by the fears and the nightmares, as these guys started the whole show around this. Compliance. So basically, if you go into... This is what I have against management in general and compliance, is that it is not about what to do, but it's about what not to do. When I was graduating from a banking school, the director is giving us a speech the first day, and it says, the day you enter from this door, you come here with your edges, like a cube. And the day you exit, you will lose all those edges so that you can run smoothly. But he said something very smart. He said that actually most of the processes in this institution that was a big public bank and all that are actually created to avoid mistakes. So they would actually slow down the things. They would put just one more approval, one more paperwork, because they have seen in the past, if you don't stop people, they're just, like driving. So it's not all about speed. Sometimes it's also about being sure that what you just signed and sent over and, press the button, it's not going to explode on the other side, because they had a lot of embarrassment, there are a lot of scandals, mistakes. So yeah, at the end, the entire, I think even most of modern methods, like even Scrum, I would say, at the end of the day, there's actually, it's about quality control. So
I think we jump directly to the topic. I want just to step back a little bit and to come back on this in a second. I just want to ask a little bit more about you, so the audience, our watchers,
who are going to now subscribe, like, and share this podcast with all your friends, family, and colleagues, and everybody.
So subscribe now, and I just want to hear a bit more before we jump to the serious topics. From Petya, what motivated you to become a manager? And it looks like you really want to be that thing, right? I see from your background and etc. That's your passion. Why do you want to be a manager?
I guess so. Well, it's not... many people actually want to be in power. But my true wish is to help people and to help people do their job better. So with the lean mindset and following all those rules that we have, like the frameworks, let's say. So this is the idea, helping them, being better.
So this is your vision of true management, if I understand it correctly, to help others.
Exactly.
Not be on top of others and
exactly.
Be
supporting.
Their boss. Right?
Not really, no.
That's very interesting, because actually before today we discussed with Bogi, okay, what kind of manager, what kind of management, because we have project management, product management, etc. management. So actually I asked ChatGPT, of course. Let me show you. I'm just going to share my screen. So I asked him, him, her, them.
They.
I asked them. Okay, tell me, I just listed all kind of management, and I said, okay, give me a summary. And it's he said, and they say, it's not it, it's they. So they say a manager is a broadest in its broadest sense is someone who oversees and coordinates the work of others. The specific title, like whatever manager, usually indicates the area of focus or level of responsibility within the organization. Managers and different levels and in different areas have distinct roles, but share the common goal of ensuring that either teams or projects contribute effectively to the organizational objective. So where is your support in this ChatGPT sentence or the, let's say, summary?
Right there. Following the rules, having a distinct role, of course, to reach the common goal.
Okay. So
but supporting the others throughout the process.
Okay.
So that you can bring the best out of them. it's a little bit idealistic, of
I
course.
love your vision. The reason I asked you is because, in my experience, when I was talking to younger managers or people who would like to become managers someday, they say, because I want to be in power.
They want the title, yes.
I want the title. I want to be in charge. I want authority so people can listen to me. Have you seen this? I mean, in your observation, your point of view, your vision of management, is it something that is rare, or the other vision is rarer? How do you assess?
Maybe mine is rare.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, actually, those kind of people, they should not be in those positions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most of the cases. Even though if they have the qualities to occupy the position, even though if they truly want to, they just change. Something snaps and they become another person.
Okay, we're jumping to the topic. Let me show you the rounds. As I said, this is a boxing match. So we have some rounds here. In round one,
Round one.
we're going to talk about the foundations of management. I think we just started exactly about this. What is the management about? Then we're going to talk about different aspects of management, challenges, and the role of the manager. Okay? So let's go with the first round. What's the essence of the management? So you gave your point. It's about supporting, achieving the company objectives through...
Helping people.
Exactly.
Well, historically, it's darker than that because we have this brain function that looks at everything as up and down, left and right. So left and right is judging whether something is good or bad. But up or down is basically what makes managers managers, is to step on top of the heads of others with the ambition to go higher than them. So managing others is the first, let's say, defining foundation of a manager. If you just manage yourself, you're not called a manager, right? You're called crazy. So you're not supposed to manage yourself too much, because then you're a narcissist, you're an egoist, or you live basically alone. The thing is, if you look at the evolution of humanity and the industry that we created, starts with slavery, basically. So in a way, managers are managing others, which makes them a slave master.
How far in the past are we talking about?
Yesterday also. Even today, if you go in any factory or the supervisor role that we are talking about, I mean, there are also places in the world, also the entire concept, basically up and down is like in the pyramids. You know, we love to reach higher and higher and build, the Bezos thingy going into space, bigger than the other guys. So basically,
Elon Musk is referring.
So it's very masculine.
both.
The concept.
Yes.
So the concept of management is actually very masculine, and it's obscene in a way. That's why there are a lot of, let's say, more feminist and, not communist, but people who believe in community and, let's say, more self-organization, etc. This is supposed to be more the female side of management, where a group of people would decide who will be cooking today and who will be doing something, and not necessarily choose the king or the,
Mm-hmm.
So the first foundation is, because it's about work, but it's also about dominating the others, to force them to do something that normally they wouldn't want to do.
So this is very actually
This is the dark.
female thing,
No.
But anyway.
Slavery is not a
No, I was
thing.
joking about to say
I
they
would like
want
to
to dominate the others.
To pick you up on the past, because if we are talking about 10,000 years ago or even before that, people, the humankind, was organized in small groups, right? We were cavemen. We were
Since
hunters.
Napoleon, we are also able to organize armies, and you press the button, and the chain of command, hundreds of thousands of people are supposed to go to their death.
So my question,
So-
I was referring to, if we are agreeing that we're coming from hunters and gatherers, what we know from history, is that there was leadership, but people were kind of self-organizing. They were discussing and making decisions, and everybody doing their part in order for the community to be successful, I mean, to survive. So to that, and if that's our nature, is management something that evolved artificially? Or how do you... That's a question to both of you, by the way. if you
Basically,
agree
the
or not.
concept of management is at the root of what you can call capitalism, right? Because you need to protect something. Armies are also built in order to protect the food, the crops. Because once you finish the harvest, you put them in a place and it needs to be protected. So it starts with the soldiers. But if you put 2 soldiers in front of a building, you need a third one to come and manage those 2 soldiers. So the management comes from the men. So you need to find somebody to do the job and you need to supervise them. So it's controlling others to get something done. So in a way, it's not coming from foraging, because foraging is you just reach out and you eat what you can. I mean, if you look at monkeys, you don't see like there's a manager. There's actually one in the whole tribe, let's say. And that comes from privileges of progeny, sexual privileges, let's say. But we don't really live like that, because since Adam and Eve, we are couples. It's more man against female. So that's another reason today I would like to hear the brighter side of management is how would the woman do the world otherwise?
Yeah, let's see. What do you think is okay? Maybe you agree or don't agree. You're going to tell us about the roots, etc. But what about the essence of management nowadays? What's the essence of it? You said support and etc. But can you be more precise where this thing comes nowadays from?
Well, of course, it evolved. Things are changing, but with the new generations, the type of people are also changing. They want different things. We were discussing just before we started about the new generations, the ones that we have, and the ones that are coming, that are going to be managers in 20, 30 years. So they would want different things, right? But the end goal would be so that the companies are achieving something. Even ChatGPT is, of course.
But actually, what you're saying really corresponds to what I hear almost every day I talk to different managers. And when it comes to the new generations, they're very exactly what you're saying. They say, we cannot control them. We tell them what to do. They don't do it. They don't want to listen to us. They're very in the clouds and etc. Yeah. So how are we going to manage these people?
No, people need to adapt. The old managers need to adapt to the new people. Of course, they need to stay relevant, not only with the management style, but also with their knowledge, with their certification, if there are any. They need to change also. People don't like that.
This is the second aspect of foundation of management, is actually the parental control. So usually, if you look at any generation, they will really like 2 generations before, their grandparents. They will be spoiled by them because these guys are at the end of their life and they have nothing to lose anymore, and they start caring for their grandchildren. But actually, they didn't. They were very controlling and quite oppressive with their own kids. So usually, one generation mistreats the next one in the name of, with the good intentions, and they spoil the next generation after that. And every generation doing that, imagine at some point it accumulates, So actually, 20th century, last century, is in a way post-industrial. So it's the end of industrial. And so basically my grandmother and my parents, they are children of the First World War and the Second World War, And you can see their approach, because the first one always speak of hunger and poverty, and the second one is more ambitious, to go out there, grab something. So actually it's also generational. But what did we do now? We invented the phones, the internet. So the kids of now, they have all and everything you could wish to have, right? When you are born. And then you go to work and, well, it's actually oppressive, and there's another boss, and, well, I think that there's this kind of Probably it's our fault. So we need to look at the previous generation and the generation before that. So it's 2 generations before. So today's kids, the alphas that are coming or the Zs, they would be spoiled by my generation.
That makes sense, but I also want to hear, okay, you are a manager now. That's your job. And from what we just described, different generations, they're very different. But today, I think this is the first time in the history where we could have, or we can, or we will have, about 4 generations in the same place working together.
Same team, even.
Yeah, in the same team. Imagine that you have, I think this is possible now. 4 generations.
We have seen this. It's not just possible. We have seen this in our.
I was just trying to make the math, but I think 4 generations can work together. Like one that is 20-year-old or 18-year-old, 60-something-year-old, and 2 generations in between. How you can manage them?
Differently. You just need to get to know every person in your team.
Okay.
You adapt. You don't stay the same as yesterday. And they are also changing. You're not the same person in your life every day.
So you have like a personal approach for every single person? Okay. Question about their expectation of management, of the manager. Because we know that older generations, they have one view what the manager should do. And our younger generations have different point of view how manager should behave and basically be. So how do you align these different, what are these different views from your perspective, and how do you think they can be aligned?
Well, starting a project, you manage the expectations, like you said.
Okay.
So you first start with the team, right? You have the older people, the ones that have
let's say the wiser,
more experienced, the most experienced one. And then you have the less experienced, right? So you have to be on the same page with everyone, right? So you explain to them, then you get to know them. Storming, forming, this is going through all the phases of the team. And then, of course, you start going towards the common goal. But yes, some of the ones that have more experience might not want you to be there. That's a clash. Some of the younger ones also might not want you to be there.
So they can unite themselves against you.
Could be.
So this could make them a team, right?
Could be, yes. But it could be towards reaching the goal, right?
Exactly.
So it's also beneficial.
Well, if I was to take advantage of this, I would think of each generation having their strengths. Let's say older generation would know how to do things. The generation after that would know what to do and when to do it. And the younger ones would question, why are we doing this? So I think you need to also manage them as like a different kind of, like imagine a piece of a brain and each part is thinking differently. So it's not about their differences and conflicts or tensions that can arise, but it's actually, that's when you're a real good like a conductor, imagine all these instruments are playing and actually some of them could be competing but depending on what the composition is. But if you listen to a contemporary music, sometimes you can say, I cannot hear this anymore.
The mismatch.
Because what the musician was looking for wasn't to please the customer, if you like. What I mean is that it's also another thing about foundation, again, to define the manager is also whatever the circumstance. And actually French are very good at defining things. Their definition of a manager is somebody who has the obligation of result. This is how they define it. It's literally defined like that. A manager is somebody who has an obligation of result.
But Levent, tell me, what are you going to do with the last generation that not only doesn't know how to do things, doesn't want to do things?
Have you
and they're
watched
not asking.
Emily in Paris?
Yeah.
Sorry, but she could actually know better, especially in communication or PR. Anything that is actual, that belongs to today. So if you are working with the market Now they are studying Gen A because actually people are spending all their money. They cannot spend it on themselves anymore. You cannot anymore spend on yourself. So they're planning the school of their kids, where they're going to live, which country. Is it Madonna who lives in Portugal now because the kids were going to school there? So actually, I know a lot of people here also in this country. They are moving out of the country because they think for their kids it's a better place to go. So these decisions that you make about the next generation are... what was your question? What was it?
How are you
Sorry,
going
I
to
lost-
manage the fourth generation that really doesn't want to actually work?
But it's not that they don't want to work. It's just that you need to give them what they can do. This is what I'm trying to say. A manager...
How do you motivate?
But you don't necessarily have to know what their motivations are. Sometimes you need to create that motivation. I think this is where things get very creative in terms of management. How do you entertain people? In some contexts, it could be somebody who's, what we call charisma. This can actually, let's say in this kind of context that you mentioned, having too much bossy or charismatic management profile could actually fire and they can cancel him.
Yeah.
Just because he's too good.
Something
Sure.
that I've seen, and I think it's one of the very key differences in this new generation, is that they are very motivated, or they're really into causes. They want...
The Y generation, yeah.
Exactly. They really want, let's say, to work in a company that is thinking about nature and pollution and all kinds of green stuff, etc. And of course, they're young, so they don't have experience and etc. It's like everyone. When we were young, when we were 20, we were like that. But we were motivated by, I don't know, maybe by something else. But in their case, this is the thing that I've seen, that they're really into it. And if we can add this into the, let's say, the brainstorming of let's say we want to brainstorm what the next feature of the project is. And when they bring this point of view, okay, what is it for the society that we're going to do? How it's going to reflect them? Because we have this even in the books, even maybe in the PM book, that one of the stakeholders of the project or the product is at the end of the day also the society. But let's be honest, that's in many cases a bit just like written down. But these people, they can actually bring it on the table and imagine that we succeed. So I expect this product will be very well sold or provided to the white audience. So I think we can actually extract lots of benefits from that different point of view that they have.
I'm very much into evolutionary way of looking at things. So another thing about a manager or somebody who's in that position is somebody who actually managed to get ahead of the others, right? Very competitive, and probably has some competitive edge or advantage that the others don't have. So in that sense, it has to be somebody who's not just a leader, but also can actually show themselves better than the others, right? So, but how do you do that is, especially in a longer term, right, in a longer game, is that you always have to see what the others don't see. So you have to always, this is not about having some kind of surrealist visions, but it's about being able to see the next step and the next step after that. So if you are 2-3 steps ahead of everyone, I think you can stay in that position. And the day you repeat yourself, obviously they will catch up with you and run you over.
Identifying the risk, right? Not only the negative ones.
Eliminating.
Preventing, yes.
Okay. Let's
But I
go
think,
to the-
sorry, I think the thing that you are talking about, they want the greater goal. Yeah. I think it's for the previous generation. And now, what would the babies that are right now, they are kids, what would they want? If we are talking about
Well, the evolution
My
is...
son
in the
wants
future.
my son wants to destroy everything. He's 2-year-old.
But this is the thing. We all start with the same behavior, same box. When we are a baby, you don't think about what will be the job or the manager will be like. You are learning the world, and the monkey in us, the maymun, that is in us is basically just tries different things in an experimental way. But if you look at the literature of, let's say, 60 years ago, that's when really the art of management has been described. But if you look at 300 years before that, people like Machiavelli, for example, they were the ones who inspired, let's say, 500 years of thinkers that ends justify the means. So this is, it's basically it's an ideological thing to manage others. So in a way, if you have to learn it from the best, and I don't know if you know Ayn Rand, if you read her book about the new intellectuals, basically she says, Attila the Brute, the boss. If the intellectuals don't help the farmers, the workers, Attila the Brute will coalesce, work together with the witch doctor, the PR and media people, newspapers, and will basically abuse the workers. This is a big criticism of the political system. If you allow the people with force, with power, they will actually manipulate the news and create advantage in terms of spreading their propaganda, let's say. And with that, they will be able to take advantage of others. So this is, I think, the darkest part of, let's say, being about the others and being able to boss them around is actually comes from this ability to fool the others, let's say, in a way. But her call is for smart people, for thinkers, not to just live in their ivory tower and write books, but also look into real life and the real projects. So,
But maybe the new generations can help us in that direction because they should be rebels, they should be against.
Yeah, do we put them in the box? Still. They are learning from the past, right? From the experience. But do we let them innovate? And to what extent?
Again, I would switch this French definition that a manager is somebody who has an obligation of result. I would switch that to somebody who has the obligation to actually evolve and innovate. Maybe that's a more successful method, because if you see tomorrow you have to work with, let's say, climate change people, you say, okay, I also care about this, and you also find ways of getting into that. And before you were a project manager, and now you become an ESG project manager, and you can also choose what kind of manager you want to be.
Okay. How are we going to summarize this round? So we heard a lot of things. Let's try to bring them all together at once. So first, management is evolving, and it's constantly learning, right? And as Petya said, we should not be afraid to make mistakes. And actually, we don't like the word mistake, but we would like to call it learning, right? Yeah. Because we are not consciously saying we're going to make a mistake, right?
Exactly.
We think we're going to do something good, and it turns out to be a mistake. And what we heard from Levent is that maybe older generations are more afraid to make mistakes or try to avoid them, if I understand.
No, I don't think I said that. But it's not older or younger. It's every period they build on top of the previous one, right? And at some point we call this overlapping generations.
Yeah.
Generations overlap. So in the overlap, there's an edge, there's a combination, there's the two coming together. So you couldn't have rock and roll if you didn't have some boring period. So it's more dialectic and it's more cyclic. Basically, this is where the good and the bright and the dark comes from. The brighter we go, the darker it gets. So it's like a shadow that follows you. So actually, there are periods of, people like Hitler, they were adored by millions of people as a top manager. He's the man, and look what he did, right? Yep. We can see almost everywhere sorry, but everybody, there are millions of people who adore Putin, right? So, or Napoleon, take any tyrant, right? This is why the Athenians would say citizens deserve their tyrants, because they actually like this kind of dark person. We still, everybody likes to watch Star Wars. Without Darth Vader, I think we wouldn't have Star Wars.
So we have darkness in the beginning of the tunnel, brightness then, and then darkness again.
Something
I'd
like
like
that.
to be a bit more positive here. So to say,
Let's stop in the middle of the tunnel.
we want just to be able to manage all these differences, because we are managers, we are leaders, we can do that. We know the past, we can foresee the future at some point, what you just said. So maybe this is the essence, that you need to be able to work with all these different generations nowadays more than ever, to understand them and to be able to see a couple of steps ahead.
And I loved what Petya mentioned, to have a common goal and let the people know what is the goal, and let them support them to achieve it.
Exactly. And let's go to the second route, which is, okay, what are different aspects?
Oh, no. This is not how you announce a round.
Go on.
And now, round 2.
First, subscribe yourself to our podcast. Now, round 2.
Round 2. The different aspects of management.
And doom.
Fight!
So, what are the important aspects of management that we need to take into consideration? Is it just about the people, or you mentioned the risks, you mentioned other things? What actually we need to take care of?
Well, the most important aspect is, if you're talking about managing a company, right, an enterprise, is that the company is there for the purpose of making money.
Okay.
So this is probably, when you say aspect, is the first obligation that is given to a manager is the obligation to make money, right?
What kind of manager?
This is the traditional view. The let's say the first aspect is you want the manager to actually squeeze the lemon as much as possible. This is what I was saying. It's the dark
I'm
side.
curious to see, do you agree with that statement?
Yes, to some extent, but to do it continuously.
Or continuously squeeze them?
Yes, endlessly.
So there is more lemon.
Yes.
Okay, so maximize the amount of lemon juice while
Yes,
squeezing.
Yes.
Okay.
So productivity. She's thinking. She's the female thinker, right?
Yeah.
Let's make more babies.
Okay.
Well, but we are talking about different aspects. So this is only one aspect.
Okay.
The thing is, you can't just squeeze the lemons and kill them all. You need to
Produce them.
rather reproduce them and regenerate them, and actually make them also thinking. Like in the Matrix, the architect wants everyone to think that they have the illusion of choice, right? So actually, another thing about management is also to create the environment. I think we understand when you say manager, not just somebody who actually has the title, but also somehow represents the spirit of the enterprise. Somebody who's the, let's say, the very model. This.
I believe you're talking about the values, because they are in the core.
No, I'm talking about the company, the enterprise, as almost like a person with a psyche, because the role of the manager is to make the decisions. Not everybody. It's the manager who makes the decisions. So we seem to be separating the head from the body, right? We say everybody should be the hands and the feet and whatever other parts, but the manager's role is to be the decision maker, right? So we seem to have this abstraction that it's the managers that make the decision. I think
All
this
the
is
decisions, or
well, yes, all the decisions, but in the name of the company's intentions, in the name of companies. So if the company, the stakeholders say, or it's a non-profit, for example, that's also an enterprise. That's also requires the same type of managers. So for the purpose, right, whether this is money or something else, they would still need to think of the best way of getting the outcomes, right?
okay. Do you agree, Petya?
Yeah, as I mentioned, to some extent.
To what extent you don't agree?
Well, he was mentioning about separating the different parts. Yes, but then the goal is the same, right? Maybe it's team. Maybe it's a bigger organization that is actually following the one main goal, bringing the money to the table.
But okay, I will disagree. Here I'll say I disagree.
With whom?
With both of you. Because actually, okay, listen to Simon Sinek. He says the money is the fuel, but the goal, achieving a goal, like go to Everest or whatever, go to Mars, this is the goal and the purpose. The money, they're the fuel to your car, but the destination of where you're here now and you want to go to Varna. So this is the goal of the company, to go to Varna. And the money are the fuel that you need in your car to go there.
Yeah, there is this, let's say, theory, or how do you say, I'm not sure. But if you are striving to achieve a goal, and that goal is fulfilling and meaningful to people, clients, society, money are going to be a
Okay.
direct consequence.
Okay.
Depending on how you present it.
Okay, but the manager is like a shepherd, and you have all these animals running in all the directions. You don't want them to just go in their own direction. You want them to go back to the stable in the evening, come back, go and eat, and come back. So it's the shepherd who wants everybody to behave and stay in line, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what Simon Sinek is thinking about the shepherd. What should the shepherd do?
Like
Not shepherd
Nelson Mandela, you know, give them vision and they will follow you.
We have one Mandela and millions of shepherds. So
So we need more Mandelas.
But Nicole, you're talking about a leader.
yeah, it's not the same as manager.
Okay, but manager, in my perspective, should be a leader that is recognized as a leader, and he's given the tools
Nobody said
and he's given the tools to be more effective in leading.
Okay, but nobody said Napoleon is a good leader, but he was one of the best people to find a large number of lieutenants. He basically recruited the managers to do the job for him. He was very good at recruiting the best managers. So he was a good CEO, you see?
Yeah.
So the CEO and manager are not the same thing. Actually, when you say manager, I'm thinking mostly about the middle managers, the shepherds.
Okay.
Not the top guy, but
So
the
now
shepherds.
we have this discussion, you opened it, about the difference between a manager and a leader. And is a manager a leader? Should a manager be a leader or not? What are the pros and cons of the two? Is it one of the aspects of management,
I think if
be a
you
leader,
Able to lead.
to be able to lead? Because I've heard the two visions shared by different people. Some people say a manager should not be a leader. They should be making sure people are following the rules. They have everything.
Executors.
Execution, yeah. And others.
What a world, huh?
Yeah. So what do you think, Petya?
Well, I would say a manager could be a leader, not necessarily, but it will lead. Manager leading would lead to a better result, because people will follow him or her effortlessly.
You know, the most advanced lean manager is a guy called Achman. If you know his trial, when he realized that in going to Auschwitz, in the train, he was putting 1,000 people in one wagon, and he realized that 50 were dying on the way, so he put 1,050, so that when they arrive, it would be 1,000 exact. Just in time destruction. But he said in his trial that he was just doing his job and he was just managing the work. He didn't say, I did something wrong, I did something bad. He said, I was just very good at my job and I did my job. And he was number 2. Most people don't know this because we know all these fancy guys, the Goebbels, but actually this guy is the one that operationalized and executed the entire operation to perfection in a very lean and efficient way. So I think the other aspect is, that's why I mentioned evolution, because I think we are going away from Homo economicus to Homo amans. This means the loving man. No longer the warrior, the destroyer. When you're a child, you learn to destroy. But when you hurt, you start crying. So I think this is what is coming now, is to humanize and make the Napoleons into softer, a bit gay, a bit more feminine. Well, this is what is being basically what's happening right now is to make those macho and aggressive management people into nicer and good fellows and good citizens and caring for the world, etc. So
depending on the culture, I would say.
Well, this
It's
is
not
the
everywhere.
evolution. We are going in that direction where the manager has to be in touch with their emotions and use those emotions to advantage. So
You mentioned culture. So should the manager be a culture? Was the word driver or something like that?
When you have a company, you already have the culture. It cannot be a one person that changes it.
Okay, but the managers then, the middle
Well,
management.
it comes from the higher management. Right?
Okay.
They are setting the day-to-day life of the company. So it cannot be the project managers, in my opinion, and that are changing completely away from the values that the company already has.
Okay.
So if you're just going to the office, you're going to the office, right? If there is no home office, talking about the newest trend, I would say. So there is no way changing.
Well, senior management can dictate
Exactly.
major drastic disruptive decisions. I think that's probably what we consider a leader.
Mm-hmm.
The one that makes the decision against the will of all the others. So actually there's a game of will. Another aspect of management is actually make people do things that they may not even want to do. But whether you call it culture or command or charisma, you basically force people to do something that they don't necessarily naturally out of their own, you don't wake up every day and go and say, I'm going to send people to Auschwitz.
Well, in the positive way, you can say you're motivating them, right?
Okay,
you're playing on the
okay,
other
but
side.
open your job description. Look at the job description. It doesn't say go and have fun. It doesn't say go and treat the others nicely. It says go and get this done, right? That's what the manager is paid for.
Sure.
Okay. And about the culture, I'm not agreeing completely with what you're saying, because I think all the managers are somewhat dictating or navigating the culture in the organization. I've seen this in our practice with Nicola. Two different teams, two different managers, two different approaches, two different cultures, even in the same company.
And the results?
Different results.
Actually, now there's a funny new job role, chief culture officer, sorry.
Okay.
There's a new, so imagine one person is responsible for the culture, but not the others.
We see that Bogi said and what you're saying about one person responsible for the culture, because what you're saying is true maybe in the beginning, because as you said, the top leadership is providing the values, culture, vision, but the middle management, they are actually much more, and they are executing. They are making this strategy happen.
Yeah.
And what gets with the time is that actually they're the drivers of the culture, because the top management, they are fewer people, and they actually, in many cases, they don't really interact that much with the organization. So actually the drivers of the culture are the middle management. So in many cases, when we have had this in our experience, let's say the top leadership wants to change the direction. They want to be more like you started in the beginning. You said, I want to be supportive and giving the, servant leader. So we've seen that the top management want to make this change, this shift to more, let's say, liberating approaches, etc. And the middle management is blocking everything, because it is the one that needs to make it happen, but they don't. Because they have other, let's say, more Tayloristic points of view about how they need to manage people. So I think that actually to be able to drive the culture is a super key aspect. I don't know.
Okay, but we are not creating a company to have a circus where we will have a nice show and people will actually dress up nicely and have a lovely culture. So culture is not an objective in itself, right? You create an organization, whether it's a company or a nonprofit or a school or government, anything. Let's call it an organization. First, the manager, I think the first role is to be a good organizer. Why? Whether it's a team or a department or a project, it doesn't matter. You need to be able to achieve something more than that can be achieved by the resources that you have. So 4 people here can talk on their own, but if you organize this well, we can turn it into a show that you can share it with the world. You see, the product finally is bigger than what we could individually do.
Okay. But why they say that culture eats strategy for breakfast?
That's for another reason, because the strategy is considered to be needed at a certain time where you need to make strategy. You cannot do strategy every day. So it's like you can eat breakfast every day, you can do culture every day, and one day you have to make a strategic move. That day, whether you have the culture or not, doesn't matter. So you need both of them. You cannot just have breakfast every day for every time. The people who say things like that is just to provoke, because there has been too much strategy talk for 50 years. Somebody comes and says, oh, culture is better. Well, I'm not sure about that. I think you need all of those things, because what makes managers need it is, I think today, in a more, let's say, complex world, is to be able to, because the world is very complex, I cannot organize myself to do this in my bedroom. There are people who do it, but then they are not able to do anything else. They become a vlogger 24 hours. You can't have everything, you know? So I think first we should question not the management, but the concept of organization is to be able to do something that you cannot do alone. You cannot do... But I think the dark side comes from, again, this ability to do more with what you have. Basically, you end up specializing. You get very specialized. So you get the best of everyone and you say, you will be responsible for projects, you will be responsible for agile, Levent will be responsible for the systems. So you end up having to recruit very highly competent people. Then you have a problem because everybody you hired is more competent than you. And how do you manage that? So I think this is the second level challenge, is once you have the foundation, you build a purposeful machine, let's say, who can deliver more than its parts. Then you say, okay, but how do I manage these people? Because they are smarter than me. And
to manage someone, does it mean that you need to be smarter than this person?
the famous thing is Napoleon being a little guy, you know, he needed that big horse so that he can show to everyone that he's the commander, you know.
Actually, average for his time, I believe. But that's another topic.
The point is, when you have a big megalomaniac, you know, how tall was Alexander the Great?
Who knows?
People were shorter, yes.
So I think that's a bit of derail of the topic. But okay, so Levent, do I get you correct that you believe the manager should be somewhat smarter than the rest of the group he's managing?
This is the first thing I said in the beginning.
But is
It's surely somebody who's smarter than all the others.
all the others? But
Otherwise, they will take him down. I mean, he cannot stay there.
Okay. And Petya, do you believe that as well?
I'm not completely convinced. You can be, well, not...
Would you respect a manager who's less smart as you? You wouldn't respect.
I would respect someone who is making the right decisions towards the goal.
So
Smarter or not, having the qualification or not, knowing more about the topic or not. I mean, well, it could be a manager who has no idea
you have
about
the
IT.
head of department of mathematics is a very smart person who makes very wise decisions but doesn't know enough about mathematics. Good luck with that.
But Levent, do you think it is realistic in our days to have a person manager who is so smart than all the others? If you're in a really complex
But then you
project?
don't need management. If you don't need a manager, then you don't need management.
But that's the
You need
next step.
management when you want to do more. You see, a university, right? Imagine, basically, you need a political animal who is the black sheep even the bad boy, to get out of the ranks and say, you can manage all the others. There's a difference. This person is different than the others.
No, different, but not smarter. You didn't say smarter. So
I think that's true for the Tayloristic way of organizing people. You know, Taylor. This guy in the early.
Yes, but you wouldn't choose you have 20 people.
Yeah, but
somebody chooses the manager, right? You don't actually. They don't come up by themselves. And one person, that's another aspect maybe. It's you are doing this. I always said this to the project managers. Project management is delegated responsibility. Somebody comes to you and says, I want these microphones all to be round. That's your project. Get this done.
I get the point, but what I see in some organizations, let's say the good number of organizations, when we work with them, is that they have managers, they call them project managers or product managers, and they really give them
it's a guardian, but it's a guardian. You understand? It's different than the others because...
Okay, but they give them the task. You have this team of super smart people. This is, for example, IT. Most of the managers, they don't have a clue what's going on.
But the manager doesn't care about the competence of each. The manager only cares about the group's result together.
Okay.
They only manage the output. This is why we have this prejudice against bad managers, let's say, because they don't care about the cost. They only care about the outcome. As long as the outcome is good,
I understand that. I just want to say that I see some organizations that give these managers, their managers, the task to get people smarter than them to achieve more.
I think that you choose normally somebody who's crueler than the others, more cruel, and not necessarily nicer, better, bigger, but it should be somebody who can make the tough decisions. And when it comes, you don't want the sheep to make the decision for all the wolves, right? But if you put the wolf, and wolf, you have to eat one of these at some point, welcome to the dark side. It's easy to make a decision on others, right? How many managers have you seen? They will say, okay, I'm the one to go. No, they will say, she's the one to go. Right? So in that sense, they're also the survivor. They will never kill themselves.
And talking about the round one, about the evolution, maybe, okay, in the past, people were more like sheeps, but nowadays, people are more educated, better educated. They have seen a lot of things in the team. I mean, team members. Can we still consider them sheep?
If they are taking orders, yes. And if there's a wolf in the clothes of the sheep, you should also watch out for that.
Okay.
But in that sense, everyone is a sheep. No matter the
that
position.
That is called the food chain. When you go above, there's a bigger fish above,
Well, if you're taking an order, it's also an order from your boss, from the client, from...
We assume that every manager wants to take the seat of his manager and her manager. And once there, we'll go further up.
Not always.
We assume, I said.
Since we're at the round two aspects, and you just mentioned that the goal of the manager is to become bigger manager, besides results.
Yes, the food chain, yeah.
Is it an aspect to be like a politician? Because this involves a lot of politics to grow in the food chain as you described. I've seen this in big enterprise organizations, not so much in smaller ones like startups or, let's say, scale-ups. But what is your point of view? Let's hear Petya first.
Well, certainly it is, of course.
To be a politician.
Yes. Or at least to try to be. Well, having the culture, having the different people, you have to navigate. Unfortunately, I would say it's a dark side. It's not such an appealing aspect.
Why not?
Well, presenting yourself maybe differently to different people. Manipulating, that's one aspect.
Do you have kind of a story to share regarding such, I don't know, consequence when you've seen managers acting as politicians, and what were the results after? Just out of curiosity.
Well, I would say trying to be on top of the team where you're all equal, let's say project managers, whatever, team leads, whatever you call it. And yes, the end result was successful for that person going on top, but with a lot of
What did that
efforts
person
and
do?
consequences. Well, getting closer to the higher managers, presenting better, playing with the team differently,
Presenting, what do you mean presenting?
presenting themselves, what they did, how they did it,
You know, I don't think
sometimes taking advantage of it.
you don't need to be an actor to present yourself differently. This happens over time. You go to MBA, you go to Harvard, you go to the best schools, and it's a very gradual process where you don't realize that what you're becoming. So this is again the transformation of Anakin to Darth Vader. You know, he wanted to save his wife. It's out of love that he becomes this unstoppable killing machine. You know. Because
Spoiler alert for the people who never saw Star Wars. Come on.
such people exist.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I don't.
So polishing the skills on the way.
What I mean is that it transforms you. I think this is the dangerous part of the management, is that you actually become the wolf, and you can all tell yourself, I am the sheep. I am the nicest person here. I should lead them because I'm actually so good for them. I'm helping them. But actually, when the decision comes, you are taking the decision not on your personal interest. You are doing it on behalf of the enterprise, on behalf of the government. So a real politician is somebody who doesn't have his personal opinions. They are the voice of their people, of the party. So
Ideally.
they are a masha, they are a tool. They are not actually, they are an instrument, right? There are even people like holy saint people who would say they are the tool of God, and they can justify anything with that.
I've seen also the other side of the coin. I've seen managers that protect their people, that
doesn't exclude.
say I made a mistake. I see managers that even got fired themselves instead of because they protect their people. Let's say they get in a conflict and so on. We've seen that.
Now we are talking about the good manager. There's the good manager and the bad manager.
Exactly.
Who is the good? I'm lost here, to be honest. The good manager is the one.
Remember what I said. We are obsessed because of our mental linguistic capabilities. Up, down, left, right.
Okay.
This is because we have this thingy, and as we grow up, right? When you're a baby, you're looking up to your parents. Those are the bosses. They make all the decisions for you. So if you want to stay like a child all your life, you never want to be a parent. Eternally, you can do whatever you like. And you must be taken care of by the more responsible people. If this is the police or your lover, whatever, your friends. But if you become responsible, what do? You make decisions that are not yours. You make the decision on the basis of purpose. So the purpose is not always such a good thing. Do you think Hitler killed the millions of people for his own personal interest? I don't think so. I think he did it for the good of his own people. This is
whatever he believed in.
Why do we have wars? We have wars because everyone thinks they are right. Left and right. You see? So basically, at any decision, even what you're going to eat today, what time are you going to eat? If you are involved with another person, if you are relational, if you're in a social context, you will always have a conflict because people will always want to make a different decision. Politician arises where to mediate the left side of the assembly and the right side of the assembly. This is where it comes from, where people are sitting during French Revolution. So when people are divided, you can bring them together. And usually this is the true, let's say, leaders are not those who divide, but those that unite.
So this is moving us to the next round, which is what are the challenges of the modern management nowadays?
Round
talk-
3.
Yeah. Let's not talk about management from Napoleon and etc. Let's talk about today. For example, culture. We have people from different cultures. We have Bulgarian, Turkish people, all kinds of people of the world in your team, for example. What are the challenges here? Or we said that there
First of
our
all,
experienced manager that sacrifices even himself for
Yes.
the team. So
I think it's quite simple in the case of culture. Culture is not something you manage.
okay.
If you manage it, then it is one that you actually create and not one that emerges, right? So the only way to manage culture is to create diversity. Because if you put all white men together, they will just go for a beer. But if you put some French lady, they will maybe go for a wine. This is culture, but you just manage the mix, the people.
Okay.
That's how you manage culture.
So as a manager, you should not only manage. You should do also other things.
Select.
You also understand and check with people what they wish to do.
Do you have such experience, for example, with different people from different cultures in your teams?
Yes, of course, in multinational companies. Well,
What happens there?
it also depends on the type of person, I would say. It's not only cultural, it's personal. So getting to know them is a little bit harder. You can always say those type of people they're working hard, they're not. It's not always valid.
Mhm.
What do you think?
About?
About if it depends not only on the culture, not only on the, let's say, origin of the person. To what extent are you defined by where you're from? How easy it is to get away from...
Actually, you can say that because you're
Yeah.
foreigner. You're coming in Bulgaria, so you see the differences in
Yes,
people.
but what is the question exactly I need to answer?
How well can a person differentiate from their culture, from their origin, to become a different one, in terms of being a different professional?
Well, you can be different in a bad way, and you can be different in a good way, because but in the context of management, and we are talking about, let's say, management for tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we started by talking about the generations, for example. So you need to be someone who creates bridges between different voices. So imagine, I always see it like a conductor. Imagine all these people, if you don't give them a direction on who plays when, they will get lost. It's impossible for so many instruments, right? So again, you have to manage this thing called the sauce. You have to make the sauce in such a way that let's say nobody is aware, or nobody's that let's say nobody complains that there's too much chili in it. You just basically eliminate. This is in the theory of freedoms. There is the concept of a French garden and an English garden. If you go to any garden in England, you will see that it looks so natural, but actually it is created like that. It's fabricated to look like a hill and a meadow, and like it was always there since the Shire was, Well, in a French garden, everything is geometric and they're cut. So they would cut the tree according to the will and the symmetry and the shadows, etc. So they do it out of a concept. While in an English garden, it is done out of a balance between parties and, let's say, the demands and the needs. And
Okay, let's be more concrete. What do you see as a person coming from outside in Bulgaria? What's our culture here? What are the specifics that, I don't know, we need to take into consideration?
Okay, now you need to subscribe. If you want to hear the Turkish observation on the... I think there is something very, let's say, human in agrarian cultures. Very human and very close, like Shire, we mentioned, So I think for millennia, you cannot forget how great you have been, right? And then now suddenly you're a small country. Suddenly it's like a very big foot squeezed into a small shoe.
Okay.
And you want to get out of this. You have this ambition. So each time an athlete goes and wins, the girls who are winning the gymnasium or the chess, and you go crazy. Our people are so great because we are so great. So this comes from, or Macedonia is ours, Alexander Great is ours. So there's all this.
The Greeks.
For me, it all looks the same. For me, it doesn't really matter. What matters is this: when you come from greatness and squeezed into a narrow channel, and you are disappointed by your management day after day, I think you lose faith. So you look for ways of proving that, and that creates a lot of tension on every individual to work on themselves. There are a lot of complexes here.
Okay, but
This is what I can tell you.
This could also become a good thing, We
Yes.
want to prove that we are more.
I didn't say good or bad. I'm telling you what I observe. There are a lot of complexes, and actually it's complexes that makes you an interesting person, right? So basically, developing yourself, in many ways, some people are quite lazy, yavaş yavaş, but some people are really pushed into like volcanoes, the pressure of they want to become famous, they want to achieve more. So I would say on percentage, it's not very well distributed because obviously it's not let's say, the bed for flowers, right? Maybe the bed is not big enough to allow everyone to grow big. But what I see is that there is a very strong deleted, erased culture of collective and group working that needs to be restored.
Yeah.
Because you have this
This is the job of the manager, exactly, to build a team. So
Yes.
our manager.
So basically, as an external, when I come here, I find it very interesting as a way of expressing or finding those synergies and actually connect them. And once they're connected, they go on their own journey. They create things that were not there before. So it's my pleasure actually to come here to this country to build teams and develop people, because there's a lot of potential. And actually this is why I'm here. That's what I worked on when I was in Belgium with Africa. We did this kind of projects. So basically, it's not about, let's say, managing, but it's about seeing humans do more than they can do without you. This is, for me, the pleasure of management.
Okay, about teaming and collaboration, what is your observation in, let's say, Bulgarian culture? Are we, in your point of view, good collaborators or not so much?
Depends what you mean by Bulgar, because there's Bulgarian history that I know, and there is the Balkan culture.
Okay.
So I think you should separate the Bulgarian from the Balkan. Then you can see more clearly what a Bulgarian can do.
Cool. Let's go to Petya now. What's your impression of working with Bulgarians compared to working with someone who is, I don't know, from somewhere else?
Honestly sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, be honest.
This is the honest podcast.
Well,
Very honest. Transparent.
working with Bulgarians, but also different generations. So the older generations here, I would say, following another type of methodology, being a manager. So that's on the dark side, in my opinion. Being the micromanager, being the one that is following the strict law. Whereas when you're in a multinational set, international company, you're more relaxed, more willing to change, to learn, to have this knowing that the other person might be different and accepting that. Because this is the different culture. Knowing that he or she might react differently to how you're presenting, let's say, the task or whatever it is.
Okay.
They might react differently where they are in a conflict. So that would be...
I have
more
never
closed.
seen anything good coming out of this kind of political correctness. I think you should be a bit more straightforward, and people also a good manager should be a good mirror, in my opinion. If the team is doing badly, you're watching Welcome to Wrexham?
I don't.
You should watch it. It's very good. It's very good. Deadpool managing a football club.
Okay.
And in 1 year making them champion. So there's some lessons to be learned. If you cannot show people what they really are, you cannot talk about the manager. I think a manager's biggest role probably is to be a very big full-length mirror, where you can see yourself. Because if you're just using a small mirror that doesn't really show you who you are fooling yourself. I don't think there's time for that.
Coming to the final round.
Round 4.
Let's talk about the role of the manager. We said in the beginning that somehow the manager starts as Anakin, positively, the hero of the day, but with the time he becomes Darth Vader. So is the manager part of the solution or part of the problem?
Or is the problem?
Part of the problem. What do you think?
Would it be ideally self-managing teams, what we were just talking about? So at some point, people start to innovate, they start to change, they start to excel with their skills. They bring more knowledge to the table. And with that comes the
dark
constant, the constant change. They go deeper and deeper. And then maybe they become afraid that they're gonna be actually redundant. If the team can manage themselves well enough, what would happen with the manager?
What do you think would happen?
He might go away because there will be someone else, not appointed by the company, but someone from the team inside that is still advising them.
Do you know such managers that are afraid that
Many of them.
they're afraid that if the team is really self-managed, they're going to be redundant?
I believe many of them.
Okay.
We should have a poll, actually.
Okay. And if they're afraid of becoming redundant, what are they doing, let's say, to prevent it? Are they doing something?
Not giving enough freedom, maybe. Maybe this is also part of why sometimes they're not giving the feedback on time, because feedback should be right on the spot.
Feedback about?
Feedback about anything, about the good side, about the bad side, how their people are performing.
Yeah. So they intentionally don't provide the feedback on time, so the person...
Or unintentionally.
Or, yeah.
Maybe they don't realize.
What do you think, Levent?
Well, first of all, again, I think of the organizer, right? Organization, because ultimately their job, their role is to manage the organization and its output, its intentions, its results. So if you are really a good one, I think you would make, the first thing that you should think of doing is to make things manageable. I like to put able at the end of things, capability. So the first role is to create the capabilities that the organization need. Imagine you're more like an architect, like a designer, and you want to create high performance teams. Whether this is imagine a regular teacher who teaches you the alphabet, and imagine what was the name? Dead Poets Society. You inspire poets. So I think I always said the definition of a leader is one that creates other leaders. So I think the role should not be to manage, but it's to make things manageable by converting other people to managers.
So is the manager part of the problem or part of the solution at the end?
Well, chicken and egg story. I don't know what you refer to as problem, because the role of the manager is to actually not to create problems, is to solve them, right? So if they are creating problems, that's because probably they have this thing called ego, and they are more into, let's say, spending more time establishing themselves as the...
Yeah, but what Petya said, that they are intentionally keeping the team, let's say, not so performing, let's say, so they can be always needed.
Giving freedom.
Well, to be honest, we talked about evolution. We talked about being smart, right? We have a speaker who talks about lazy project management. So if you're really good at management, it should be very, let's say, invisible. Like you do it in such a way that nobody thinks of you as the manager, but they think of you maybe as a sister or a helper, you know. So it has to be not in a, let's say, dominating way, but it has to be in an enabling way, empowering way.
Like a glue.
Well, that can depend on the context. I always think of the conductor, this crazy guy who's moving all around in a frenzy, trying to give many directions to many people. But if you're not a guiding person, then you are not needed. So guidance is very important.
But you're talking about Anakin, but why they become Darth Vader?
Well, this comes from the pressure of the responsibility, because you need to imagine you have the fates of let's say 1,000 people. You are managing them, right? 1,000 people, a department. Again, the ultimate goal should make things easier to manage and not harder. So you shouldn't be forcing yourself to a point where you get crushed by the responsibility and the task, but you imagine going to work every day and you did what it took to actually make it easy for all those 1,000 people to do their work without you having to run after them, right? So whether this is delegation, whether this is maybe creating a process or the culture, right? So it's not about going to take that next hill, the strategy, but working with those people and their personality and group dynamics to let that group take that hill on their own, because you cannot just go and check every soldier, every movement, so you need them to basically, you don't self-manage, but you kind of follow a guidance that is let's say created as a hologram, let's say. It's probably a multidimensional thing, but it works by itself because it's manageable.
Mm-hmm. Petya, about the self-organizing teams, how do these teams emerge? It's not like bringing some people in the office or in the conference room or whatever and tell them, your self-organized team, go conquer everything and you don't need a manager. I assume if you do this, you're going to fail miserably.
Yeah, for sure.
So what is the role of the manager to create, and how a manager can create self-organizing teams?
Giving some tiny parts of his role to the others, slowly, gradually, until they become, self-managing. Self-managing to the extent of, okay, this is not only the task that I have to do. I have to think how to collaborate with the other person, at what point I need to help the other person, depending on the job, of course. And then they would be reaching this ultimate idealistic state. It is.
But you said it's idealistic, which means they are never going to achieve it.
Well,
is it correct to assume this?
Maybe it is, maybe it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the people, in my opinion, it's not manageable everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I believe in a factory, you should have still.
I believe in the tyranny of necessity. So if this design that we are talking about is not by necessity, it means it's artificial and it is probably created by, let's say, unnaturally. The natural forces of each of us that we have, right, is to talk to each other, to relate, to up to a point listen, and see what we can do together. So if you start cooking right now, even the person who doesn't know how to cook will volunteer. They will be motivated to give something, or they will offer themselves for the task. So this offering, this volunteering, this motivational, let's say, environment is one where you don't actually punish people for speaking or volunteering or, So basically, first, I think it starts by not using the stick too much and more using the carrot tactics, let's say. But also, if you cannot actually create self-organization, you need to just find those key individuals who can do that. So I think a group is not a homogeneous group of sheep, but in the group there are also organizers, catalysts, and you need to also be very good at spotting the right persons who can. Basically, you connect to them somehow. Maybe it's a very psychic process, but they also, you spot those that can actually organize, If you look at Squid Game, you just say, okay, all of you come, and the first person if you survive, you survive. But that means there are thousands of individuals. But if you give them some incentive to shield each other, protect each other, or give them some benefit of grouping together, right? Then the behavior changes. There are a lot of experiments like this. But if you look at, for example, the example of what was this? Kids ending up in an island and they start killing each other almost. So you can actually the fly island or something like this. It's a very famous book. Some kids, the sailors, they're from a school of sailing and they end up in an island, and eventually they become they form into two groups. To one trying to kill the other.
It's like Peter Pan.
Yeah, but in the darkest sense, I believe it's a real story actually. The point is this: human nature has the worst and the best. If you know how to motivate them, so you create this marketplace for them to show and win good points. Some kind of alışveriş. That if you're, for example, today we are doing something, and if you like it, we will maybe do something similar. You invited me tonight, I'll invite you to another event. So basically, you need to create an economy of this transfer of good points instead of, let's say, competing and fighting and killing each other.
But the people who are actually surviving on the island have their own goal, right? Whereas with the example where we have a team and a company, the goal is company's goal, right? So you are, again, navigating those teams to become self-managing. Whereas if the goal is your own, surviving on the island, you are trying to maybe collaborate or just to survive, and you're managing the group.
Yes, but this was not a Robinson Crusoe story where you are alone, but you are in a group, and people behave differently in a group. The idea is that you cannot just manage the entire. It's not a shepherd and sheep kind of situation. You need to find the shepherds to manage those micro groups, because a group is never that homogeneous, especially if you increase the numbers. Not a small team of, let's say, 5 to 6, but imagine you have to manage 500 people. So then you have to create levels of, let's say, you need to find those individuals so you need to be very good at observing and understanding how social. Imagine a teacher. There are 60 people in the class. If you don't know who's or in a prison or whatever, it's the same in a company. I think you cannot just have HR taking care of your let's say subordinates, right? You need to do that yourself. You need to create those dynamics where they can do more than they would do if they were just sheep, let's say.
Is the self-organizing team the better way to squeeze the lemon?
In a way, yes. But also, as we are talking here, so it depends on the scope. Right. It depends on the type of structure, the culture. Everything should be taken into account. Some processes cannot be self-managed within the team. Some could be. But I have some experience, and I would say the story of several teams working separately with separate managers actually want to become self-managing team, and they want to collaborate, but this is not happening because of the higher management.
So
they become inefficient, less efficient, and they are frustrated with this situation. So there are the restrictions
you should first of all forget about micromanagement, because it's just too time consuming. This is why you need to create a system. But what I was saying from the beginning is, when you take the evolutionary view, you are taking the long view. You're not just talking about cooking or doing this show and we stop. We want to do this repeatedly, right? You want to improve every time. So basically, in the long term, you need to find those people who can learn from this journey. Imagine you are going on a trip in South America. You come back, and everybody who went on that trip becomes a trip organizer. And then they organize. You see, this is how you make it viral as well. So it's not just about self-organizing to do one task. It's to build an organizational culture that can, we call this build to last. So it has to last. It has to survive, and it has to be so good that even the others would take an example, because we are good monkeys, We are very good at imitating. So I think this is where the most important role comes. We tend to imitate, let's say, good examples as much as bad examples. So you can choose as a manager, you can create a toxic culture by being bad, or you can create a very rewarding and growing and development culture by being a good example of that. So I don't think it's about whether it is self-organized or not, whether it is built to last. Because you can be self-organized, you will get 100 points, and you will deliver terribly.
I agree. It should be sustainable culture.
Exactly.
And you need to go for the long run.
Yes, exactly. This is what I'm trying to say. Because most of the time projects work is a repeated game. We don't just do it once and stop. We do it again. And I think that's where the evolution comes into play. Is every time you should look for those opportunities to improve the performance.
Okay. And self-organization happens when you have constraints that are clear to the group. Otherwise, what you're going to have is chaos, right? So I believe the role of the manager is to set the right constraints for the group, and also move them or challenge them, help the group to challenge them, to refine them. So I think that is a role that is here to stay.
Let's give an example. We have a small team, so you have the constraint of, let's say, a week time. You need to achieve a goal that we agree it's achievable.
Yeah.
So self-organize and achieve it in 1 week.
You have this budget.
Let's not list all the constraints, but and when you have that clear constraints, team can perfectly self-organize. You can even step back, leave them to try to fail a bit with something. This is how I think it should work. That the manager should be really, as Bogi said, clearing the constraints, not so much micromanaging as Levent said.
Yeah, this is to reassure and comfort the managers who are afraid that their role is going to be gone. Their role is going to be changed, evolved, as you said. They need to learn new skills, right? One is to lead people, to let them collaborate together, to help them, as you mentioned in the beginning, that you believe
to be behind the scenes, to watch from
sometimes, yes, to be behind the scenes, to let people try, but also to be there whenever needed, right? So, for example, the constraints are there. He needs to, or she needs to, make it clear to everybody what are the constraints, and then the person can let the group self-organize. So
I think I want to go back to what I said about the necessity. Because if you're going to just organize a party and let's make it fancy and everybody can contribute to they want, I think too much democracy is not the best solution. But there are some, let's say, researched and actually implemented ways of dealing with this kind of responsibility is to use a circular structure rather than a, let's say, triangular. holocracy, for example, where what you do is, again, you create, but this works only in an environment where everybody is highly skilled. You just put on the table, you say, these are the 10 things we have to do. Doesn't matter which one we start with. It doesn't matter who does it. Let's just decide who wants to do what, and you just let them choose what they want to do. But this works in the universities. This works in highly, let's say, knowledge work, because almost everybody who's in the team is capable of. Actually, this is also the true meaning of a Scrum. Basically, everybody should be able to do everything. But if you are specialized, I think you need to be still good at organizing and say, okay, those two, only these two we can do. Let's separate that. The remaining 8, you choose if you don't mind who does it. You can decide on your own. But again, how can you achieve this if you don't have this reward for self-motivated volunteering people? I always get punished for volunteering. I always get criticized for doing more than I should.
Really?
Always.
Why?
Because I try to do 300 more things than I should. Because I can. And I get criticized for that. Because they say, yeah, but the others cannot. So don't do so much because the others cannot follow you. You see, this is also, you need to also see that everybody is not, in an environment where everybody is not at the same level, you know? What do? You encourage the best one, or you discourage because then the average, on average, it looks good. So I think this is
Bulgarian culture, yes.
This is well. Let's not make it personal or national, but basically you have gone through. Yes, Bulgaria has gone through this. Somebody I really respect explained this as a flea circus. You put fleas in a jar, in a jar first, and they jump, and you just put them in a smaller and smaller and smaller, so they learn not to jump because they hit their head, and then you can put them in the kibrit afterwards.
Yeah, this is what we call learned helplessness.
Something like that. The idea is that if you're a good manager, I think you really know your herd, your people. And you know the differences. So sometimes you may give a challenge to somebody so that they can get closer to the others. But maybe you also sometimes have to ask the best one to do less, because you want to create this. I think this is the most difficult part, is to create an equal sense of equality, which unfortunately we don't have among humans.
Well, I like your point of view, and the role of the manager to be a person who is overseeing the system. The team is a system, and helping the system grow and navigate the parts.
But the motivations, even understanding the motivations. Basically, a perfect manager is a perfect conductor, and I believe it takes probably a conductor kind of job is the one that takes the longest. Because you have to learn all the instruments. So you have to understand all the skills, all the responsibilities. So basically, you can't be just a manager coming out of an MBA. You actually also have to probably practice most of those other jobs to really understand what it's about.
Okay, makes sense. I think we said really a lot. We got through these 4 rounds. Petya, how would you, let's say, summarize what are the dark and the bright sides of the management based on what we discussed today?
I would say with one sentence. So the dark side is restricting, and the bright side would be supporting and giving the option, giving the possibility or creating the possibility for your team members to grow.
Cool.
So that everyone evolves. But it's all about change at the end, because people don't like the different things. They don't like change. They like the status quo. You have the team member that says, don't do that much because we will look bad, the others that are not performing so well.
In your Levent, what do you think?
Well, I would recommend everyone to be very cunning and smart. So that, because I learned this long time ago and I see it all the time, that there's evil in the heart of good and there's good in the heart of evil. Meaning, good intentions, go and take you to hell. So it is possible that you, as a manager, you should learn how to predict, maybe not control but predict, that where people are. I really look at it from a people management perspective now, because systems and processes, cultures, etc., those things are can be, let's say, designed, but when you're dealing with humans, it's very difficult to predict them. So cunning in the sense that you have to be so smart to manipulate without manipulating, to motivate without giving, to encourage without making a difference between them. So it has to be something like an invisible hand doing the things. So I would recommend no one to go out there and boast that they are such a good manager, they coached this and they did that. Well, a real good one, you would not see what they are doing. So they have to be very subtle and work with the subtext, subcontext, work with the what is not said, what is not managed. So I think the real skill is to manage without managing.
So if you are a manager, make yourself invisible and subscribe to this podcast.
Yeah, it was a very good final, I would say, statement from both of you. And it was a pleasure having you.
Likewise.
And it's a time to give you some...
There are some gifts, of course, but before that, I would say to our audience to share their bright side and dark side. If you agree or disagree with what you heard from our conversation here, feel free to comment and share your points of view. We would love the discussion.
Yeah.
And for both of you, we have a token of appreciation that you joined our podcast today. So let me just...
And don't forget that the dark side and the bright side, they are the same, two sides of the same coin.
Okay. Here's a
Thanks so much.
gift for you and you, Levent.
Another mug.
Another mug that you can fill with rakia.
Thank you.
Pure rakia, right? This is our favorite.
You can throw it at each other.
No
I
throwing.
think pretty much I cannot declare winner here, but I can emphasize that
We can declare a
there's a lot
winner.
of value.
Our audience is the winner.
You're the winner. Subscribe, like, and share now.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you both. It was really a pleasure. And
Our pleasure.
have a great
Thank you.
whatever day, evening, night. Ciao.
Bye, everybody.
Let's get some pizza.
Yeah, let's go.